We all love a legendary comeback, and Degree Original Cool Rush is back and better than ever. Cool Rush isn't just a scent, it's a movement, a fan favorite that delivers bold, fresh vibes and all-day sweat protection. Whether you have a man that spends hours in the gym, heads into the office early, or is just trying to stay fresh on a long day, Cool Rush has their back. Head to your local Walmart or Target and grab Degree Cool Rush, the fan favorite scent from the world's #1 antiperspirant brand.
Welcome to People Tech, the podcast of the HCM Technology Report. I'm Mark Pfeffer. My guest today is Brent Skinner, co-founder, director, and principal analyst for HCM at 3Sixty Insights. Not long ago, he kicked off a discussion on LinkedIn to consider the pros and cons of full suite HCM technology versus single-point solutions. I'll ask him to expand on that, and we'll look at how employers can navigate the question, what it means for small businesses, and the dangers of trying to be all things to all people on this edition of People Tech. Hey, Brent, it's good to see you as always. Now, you had an interesting post on LinkedIn not so long ago. You were looking at the use of single suite platforms versus multiple suite platforms. Can you recap what you said?
Let me see if I can recall that particular LinkedIn post as best I can, as I'm posting all the time. But I will say that this one was pretty interesting. There's been a sort of a pendulum swinging back and forth for many, many years. Honestly, probably longer than you or I have been in this space, HCM technology, where, we've gone through phases where the vendors and maybe even the potential buyers think, yes, let's go with one suite to cover as much of HCM as possible. Moving toward one suite to do that. And you could actually make the argument that there's a similar sort of, there's been similar lurches toward, let's do everything on the enterprise with one suite from one vendor, right? But let's keep this scoped to HCM for today's conversation. And then the pendulum has moved in the other direction, where, look, you can't be all things to all people. You'll need point solutions, maybe many of them best of breed for various things that you do in HCM. And the best you could possibly really hope for is maybe sort of doing your payroll, possibly your WFM, your workforce management, and your core HR with sort of like your sort of foundational vendor, and then bringing in point solutions for all the rest. And so I would say maybe those are two extremes. And I think what we're seeing is that the move to be all things to all people, the move to have full suite HCM deployments be sort of the norm, and sort of busy HCM technology stacks being sort of the exception to the norm. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to, the research out there is saying, whether you look at Gartner or Sapient Insight, you look at Sapient Insights, I forget the number, but it's over 100. If you're an enterprise size organization, you may have as many as 100 different applications in your enterprise stack. This sort of, and Gartner is predicting that there's going to be more point solutions, not fewer in the future. So in HCM specifically. So I think we're moving toward a world where full suite HCM, the sort of the vision of a full suite HCM is maybe, I don't want to say it's on the wane, but I think it's not going to be across the board as people might have thought a few years ago.
Well, it's funny. Josh Bersin said a few years ago that pretty much everybody was going to adopt the multi-suite approach, point solution approach. So what's your thought? I mean, is there anything you can add to that?
I think he's absolutely correct. That was a really good prediction, and that's why he's Josh Bersin. But I'll say that, in terms of it adding to that, well, I think I may just have done that a minute ago, but I will say as advice, I would say organizations need to plan for this future, to be ready. there is not going to be a one HCM suite for most of your needs in the future. You're going to be piping in lots of point solutions. You need to be ready for that. And that means being ready to handle the integrations, being ready to grill your potential vendors of various technologies for your HCM technology stack, for what their integration approach to integration is, and these sorts of things. Because cloud integration, point-to-point API, sort of that sort of stuff is actually not all solved. Integration in the cloud is better than it was with on-premises solutions, but it's definitely not solved, as you might have heard, as people might have heard out in the industry chatter. It's definitely not solved yet.
In terms of implementation, is it more difficult and is it more expensive to implement a multi-suite solution?
Well, depending on how you approach it at the outset, I would say if you approach it with a sort of a limited understanding of what it really entailed in cloud-to-cloud integration over the long run, then you are setting yourself up for a potentially very expensive future. But if you approach it from the outset with your eyes wide open, so to speak, understanding that point-to-point API integrations aren't the end-all be-all, is certainly better than what preceded them. But understanding that you need an integration strategy and that you have to really approach it as sort of I like to say, a Zen attitude, where it's not something that's one and done. It's not something that's just taken care of at the outset and you can just set it and forget it. It's something that you'll have to tend to over the course of the lifetime of that particular integration. Then you're setting yourself up for a much more financially manageable situation.
So what about smaller companies? Isn't it simpler for them to just implement and worry about a single solution?
Yeah. I'm glad you asked that question. So this gets into the going down the rabbit hole a little bit, right? So just as there's not going to be a one sort of HCM suite competitors, of full HCM suites that are vying for everybody's business in the future, there'll be a lot of point solutions. That's too much of a simplified sort of look at it. It's also too much of a simplified look at it to say that, yeah, nobody will be able to use full suite solutions. And I'm glad you brought up small businesses. This gets into HCM maturity. And I've seen HCM maturity. I've seen it defined and the phases of it defined differently, but let's just say that generally speaking, you're moving from when you enter into your journey to HCM maturity, you're starting at a point of sort of solving for the basics of HCM. You just want to get something down there. You want to get a take down on vinyl, right? So you can do everything that you need to do in HCM. And that may very well entail everything from payroll, obviously, through time and attendance, scheduling, benefits administration, core HR, all that kind of stuff, all the way through performance management, talent acquisition, and a few other things, right? And your needs are basic, they're fundamental, they're very much operational HR, you're solving for that. And there are plenty of solutions out there that can definitely fit the bill. iSolved is one, UKG Pro is another, their Paylocity, there's just a slew of different vendors out there that provide an end-to-end suite that's more than viable, that's definitely very good for a small business that's realizing, hey, we can't do all this stuff in Excel spreadsheets and email, maybe even PDFs and paper anymore. We need something. We need to sort of digitize and get to that first level. As you move along, and a lot of organizations, frankly, they kind of stay there for a long time. So there's definitely a market for those types of solutions. But then you kind of move along through the phases of HCM maturity, and there's some middle phases there. But you eventually get to sort of what I've seen some vendors describe as full engagement, right? So your HCM, now you're sort of operating on a very strategic level when it comes to HR and your human capital management. And you're thinking about, not just protecting the employee experience from a basics kind of standpoint, but sort of engaging your workforce and figuring out who the next leaders are, and maybe even in deploying AI, these sorts of new things out there. This is where these full suites sort of reach their limitations, and organizations find that they need to pipe in various different best of breed, point solutions. But if I may just kind of back up again, let's say you're a relatively small company, but you have perhaps a very complex sort of need related to scheduling, for instance. You may still need to pipe in something, depending on who you use for your full suite HCM. You may still have to pipe in something that can handle that level of complexity with scheduling. There are some AI-based solutions out there, or machine learning-based solutions, such as Legion. Legion is one. There are others in that realm that you might need. Or you may have some needs in talent acquisition, for example. That's where we see a lot of the point solutions coming in, is where people recruiting is so complex, and no matter how small the business is, they just need something just a little bit more sophisticated so that they can capture the attention of potential new hires and bring them through the process and get them hired before the competition does. So I hope that starts to answer that question.
Greetings from Evergreen Podcasts. We're rolling out a listener survey, and we want to hear from you. The information in the survey will help us gather statistics and in turn make our shows more appealing to advertisers. I know most people don't like ads, but this is one of the only ways our shows make money and help keep their lights on. We promise it will only take a few minutes, but the impact on our podcasts will be tremendous. As a token of our appreciation, we'll randomly select one lucky participant each month to win an exclusive merchandise package from Evergreen Podcasts. Head to evergreenpodcast.com/listenersurvey to help a show and possibly get some free stuff for doing so. We can't thank you enough for the support. Now back to the show.
Yeah, well, let me ask a similar question from the other side. I want to ask about vendors. What about smaller vendors in the market? It would seem to me that the multi-suite approach is going to give them more opportunities and startups more opportunities. What's your sense of the dynamics of that? Small companies playing against big vendors and all of that.
I think you're absolutely right, and the reason being is that they're actually not competing one-to-one, head-to-head with the full suite vendors. There's actually a lot of opportunity for them because they're actually just competing with their potential customers' needs, right? So they're answering that need. So they're not. There's one would think that because there are a lot of these sort of established full suite players out there, that the point solutions might have trouble sort of rising above the din and whatnot. But I think we've gotten past the point where they're combating this, what I think is a no longer existing predilection for full suites. I think we've moved past that, and so they're no longer combating with that trend or that perspective, or the word's escaping me, but listeners would probably think of the word that I'm trying to think of right now. But in any event, they've moved past that, and now they're looking at those. The users are actually looking for those solutions, looking for those. They have those needs, and they're finding out that their full suite vendors don't really have the horsepower to be sort of deep and sophisticated in all areas. And this brings us to another point, though, that I think is interesting. Every single full suite was actually 2 points I want to make. First one is that every full suite vendor of HCM technology, of full suite HCM technology, Not every one of them, but most of them, you could probably look at any one of their modules or areas of their functionality and say that's where they are best. They're good enough in all the areas so that they can provide a suite that works for some cross section of the market, but they're really good in that area. We're seeing actually in our conversations with users, we're always speaking with users here at 3Sixty Insights. We're actually uncovering use cases where organizations are going to some of the full suite vendors just to pipe in one piece of their functionality. City of Memphis is an example. They have an Oracle HCM cloud deployment for the city of Memphis. We actually did a case study on that a couple of years ago. But more recently, they reached out to UKG, which of course was formed from Ultimate Software and also Kronos. And it's the latter of those that's really interesting here, because they are actually piping in. They decided to pipe in UKG for time and attendance for their hourly workers, because they found that they just didn't have that the level of sophistication they needed to handle, say, union workers and all these sorts of things presumably through Oracle HCM Cloud. And so they turned to UKG, and of course that's legacy. Kronos, of course, obviously innovated since the merger of those two companies to be something even better than it was. But as we know, having been in this industry for a while, Kronos has always been known for having a very highly capable time and attendance solution, capable of sort of handling those union rules and all that kind of stuff. So I think it would behoove most HCM full suite HCM vendors to sort of do a self-inventory, kind of do a look, some some introspection, let's put it that way, and say, okay, where are we absolutely the best in our suite? And then just prepare, be aware that there's going to be a ever so slowly but inexorably dwindling opportunity for full suite deployments, and you're going to want to sort of bolster that by ramping up maybe your outreach and your prospecting, this sort of stuff around what you're best at. That's the first point I wanted to make. You talked about some of the smaller startups and being an opportunity for them, and this is sort of an interesting observation that I had right off the cuff here that occurred to me. I don't know it's unclear to me what, if any, sort of prospects there are for small startup full suite HCM vendors today. I think if you're an entrepreneur today, and you're looking to sort of break into the HCM technology market space, I don't know if I would necessarily do so by trying to start a brand new full suite HCM technology.
Actually, that was my last question.
Oh, it was?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, Brent, thanks a lot. It was great to talk with you as always, and I hope we'll talk again soon.
Oh, thank you very much. Likewise, Mark. Always great. Pleasure to speak with you.
My guest today has been Brent Skinner, co-founder, director, and principal analyst for HCM at 3Sixty Insights. And this has been People Tech, the podcast of the HCM Technology Report. We're a publication of Recruiting Daily. We're also a part of Evergreen Podcasts. To see all of their programs, visit www.evergreenpodcasts.com. And to keep up with HR technology, visit the HCM Technology Report every day. We're the most trusted source of news in the HR tech industry. Find us at www.hcmtechnologyreport.com. I'm Mark Pfeffer.
The world's best-known investor and Wall Street expert Warren Buffett once said, Wall Street is the only place that people ride to in a Rolls-Royce to get advice from those who take the subway. Mr. Buffett's quote is remarkably accurate, but how many people would rather receive advice from him than someone simply guessing? Welcome to Buy, Hold, Sell, your single source for Wall Street knowledge and profitable guidance. Please join me, Todd Schoenberger, and fellow trader Tobin Smith, as well as host Veronica Dudo, for a podcast known to move the needle for investors. Tobin and I are seasoned Wall Street executives with deep investment experience, and we are prepared to share our advice to those who choose to listen. Download Buy, Hold, Sell today on the Evergreen Podcast Network or your favorite podcast channel.
Do you love news about LinkedIn, Indeed, Google, and just about every other recruitment tech company out there?
Hell yeah. I'm Chad.
I'm Cheese.
We're the Chad and Cheese Podcast.
All the latest recruiting news and insights are on our show.
Dripping in snark and attitude.
Subscribe today wherever you listen to your podcasts. We out.
The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in more places that could expose you more to identity theft. But LifeLock monitors millions of data points per second. If your identity is stolen, our US-based restoration specialists will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Don't face drained accounts, fraudulent loans, or financial losses alone. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.